Now, this channel is a little bit different than some of the other channels. And again, I'm not bragging too much. Obviously, with every channel, it has a certain style, certain boundaries, but I like to think I'm a little bit more open-minded. But if you do get into anti-Scientology, like it or not, Aaron is a very big player. And for a long time, him and Serge were one of the top set of voices to, quote, basically guide people. But now that's coming undone. And Serge for a while was supporting Aaron, but now he's back to supporting the protesters and streamers. A lot of people want to celebrate Serge. Well, I'm going to tell some harsh truths. But although I am usually just negative about Serge, I will give him one big thing, and it's a positive, that he did on his channel and his community posts and videos. I'm going to have to do some censorship because of YouTube. It is what it is. If you want the unadulterated version, if presumably he hasn't taken down the post, you can look for yourself. So what did he do? Well, let me just get out of the way quickly why I don't believe Serge. So the basic story with Serge is, like Aaron, he claims that he grew up in Scientology. What he leaves out that as an adult, he stayed in Scientology. And you know what he did? And this is an amazing coincidence because Aaron just did a video on this, but one of the allies or friends he hung out with were the Masterson family. Yeah. So you have Danny Masterson. And again, I want to be careful not to stereotype people, but usually in Scientology, if you have one person in your family, there's going to be quite a few other family members. So Danny's brother, his other brother, his sister, and his mother are in Scientology. And they're all tied to the Hollywood system in some way. Like Danny's mother for a long time was a casting agent. I don't know if she still does casting, but if you try to audition in Hollywood, you likely met her. So they've been in Hollywood for a while. As has Serge. Serge was going to quite a few parties and art exhibits with the Scientologists. There's literally a photo of him next to Jordan Masterson. And if you follow Serge's videos, he makes clear that it was well known among the Scientologists that these people were criminals, that they likely committed many crimes. And with Danny, now he says, oh, yes, people knew. Oh, yes, people knew. He still chose to associate with these people. But now let's move on to what he said about Aaron. Now he's framing it in a very deceptive way. So he's complaining about how Aaron treated Liz Ferris and some of his friends, which I agree, and how he's treated the protesters and streamers. I agree with that too, but notice what he does in the post. He limits it to those people. Aaron has been abusive to people besides those other people, right? He's been abusive to many people. Serge doesn't bring those people up. They don't exist. So he's not really siding with the victims of Aaron. He's siding with some of the victims. And it's very shocking the way he tries to argue with someone who, from what I understand, was a really enthusiastic supporter, but now apparently he doesn't like her opinion. I'm presuming this is a woman, but I don't know for sure. And she brings up that Serge should have handled this privately, and the fact that he's not proves he's not really part of the community. And Serge brings up, which does not help him, that, oh no, he kept quiet. Behind the scenes, he tolerated Aaron being abusive. He didn't speak out, but he says that's a good thing. Alrighty then, but he does make one solid point, and this is not the big point I'm doing the video on, but it's still worth going through. Namely that Aaron is running a foundation. And a foundation is a public thing. Even though his corporation is technically private, it is serving a public function. And if it doesn't do what it says in terms of helping victims, that is a problem. So even Serge is not a good person. He's a fraud and a liar. Him calling that out is correct. Right? You're not betraying privacy because as the board president, right? As chairman of the board, like David Miscavige, you have a duty, right? Like Scientology is technically a religious nonprofit, right? But if it's violating the law, if you speak out against David Miscavige, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not betraying privacy. It's like you shouldn't be breaking the law in the first place. And clearly Aaron has. So that part I will defend Serge on. The problem is just the sharp flipping that happened, because a lot of the things that Serge is now talking about, DOA talked about for months. A lot of what Serge brought up, DOA already brought up. He brought up those issues. He brought them up explicitly, and Serge didn't say anything. And there we are. But now let's get to the big thing. And this was quite a lot of tea. Now, if you really study anti-Scientology and Scientology, you'll know this. But a lot of people in the comments who want to give Aaron the benefit of the doubt, apparently they don't know this. But finally, Serge did kind of confirm this, which is well known, but let's get to it. So if you listen to Aaron quite a while, he will keep bringing up, I mean, that's the channel name, that he was growing up in Scientology. Like most things with Aaron, that's half true and half wrong. It is true that Aaron spent some time as a child in Scientology, but then he was out of it. And as Serge emphasizes, he joined the Sea Org as an adult. So there is something obviously tricky going on here. He's making the claim that Aaron was not as victimized. Now, I think this is actually a big problem for Serge, because in his videos, he puts out a very propaganda image of Scientology and children in Scientology. Listening to him, every single child in Scientology is traumatized, and to an insane degree. Like, they are the most traumatized children of all time. I'm not exaggerating. Like, the way he keeps talking, it's pretty ridiculous. However, with Aaron, he's making an exception, saying, yes, he was a child in Scientology, but he really didn't suffer too much. And I agree. Like, Aaron has never presented really strong evidence that he was traumatized as a child in Scientology. Right? He keeps alluding, oh, guys, I grew up in the cults. People have this image that Aaron, like, since a baby, was locked into a concentration camp. And David Miscavige apparently routinely grabbed Aaron, took him into a small room, and did unspeakable things. That is not what happened, right? Through his parents, yes. Aaron was exposed to Scientology, and if you're absolutely against all kinds of Scientology, I can understand your outrage. However, there is no evidence that we know of that, quote, anything sexually improper happened when he was a child in Scientology. As far as I'm aware of, no evidence of that. And that is actually a big problem for Serge, because Serge assumes that every child in Scientology, by definition, is abused. But that's him. You know, he's lying. But we'll put that aside. The important thing here is that the image Aaron puts out, and again, sometimes he does correct people saying, well, no, I spent some time out of Scientology, which should set off alarm bells saying, well, wait a minute, I thought kids could never get out of Scientology. It's like slavery. No, it's not like that. Scientology comes in different forms. There are different kinds. There are different organizations in Scientology. There's the staff, there's the Sea Org. It's a big thing. There are going to be different levels. I'm going to try to bring in very quickly the Nazi parallel. I know people don't like when I do that, but that is my specialty. And this is a major controversy in German studies and Hitler studies in particular, namely, how much did the German people consent, right? This is why it's studied so much. There was no doubt a lot of coercion going on in Nazi Germany. But the shocking thing, as more and more research is showing, is there wasn't as much coercion as people think. A lot of times people did have a choice. Do you want to stay or leave? Do you want to join the party? Do you not want to join the party? Do you want to resist or not? And obviously this is why German history is so shocking, is that many people freely chose to back Hitler. Many cynically didn't do anything, but some people did the brave thing and either went into exile or resisted in Germany, or only pretended to help, but were secretly helping the Allies, right? Again, it's a very sordid history. Now, I'm just making a simple point here, because obviously people don't like when I keep bringing in the Nazis. But the point would be this, that Aaron keeps selling this image where, like a little boy growing up in Nazi Germany, I didn't know, guys. We were all part of the cult. I didn't know any betters. How could you blame Aaronis? I didn't know. I was a small child. They took me and destroyed my childhood. That is simply not what happened. He definitely lost a few years as a child to Scientology. Whether that was traumatizing, maybe, maybe not. But for whatever reason, Aaron joined again. It's like he went to these KKK rallies as a little kid and decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to join the American Nazi Party as an adult. Why would you do that? Why? Why would you do that? So people do have this fairy tale image of Aaron as a pure victim since a child. That is simply not the case. Now, of course, Serge is doing the similar thing, saying, oh, I was also traumatized as a child. We don't know that. There are a lot of accusations and claims here, but we don't know. But being good faith, I think it's pretty clear that definitely many children, a huge number of them, were abused. So Good faith, I'm sure Serge, as well as Jenna and others, did experience some kind of abuse, being good faith, but we really don't know. I mean, we're just stuck. We are oftentimes building this narrative based on the testimony of other people, and now we know the testimony is tainted. And there are cases where, yes, some children from an early age were definitely in Scientology and were doing some horrific things. Like Jenna Miscavige, Aaron's mistress, recalls stories of her being forced to pick up these huge boulders as a little kid just to do grunt work. It's pretty horrifying. But there are going to be cases where, yes, you do have a child who grew up in Scientology, and it was very traumatizing. Unfortunately, as Jenna shows, now she's attacking and being very toxic to the other protesters and the streamers. And she attacked outright DOA. So it's just a very puzzling thing. I think people just need to wake up and realize that, listen, even if you are a child victim in Scientology, people want to believe this myth when you grow up, you're a superhero. It's just not true. Some people were definitely victimized as children. Some people were children in Scientology. They were not victimized. They suffered no trauma. Not every single child in Scientology is a victim. That is simply a false narrative. And definitely, even if they are a victim, they don't grow up to become superheroes. Because now you have Aaron parading around, I'm Batman. I'm Superman. I survived the cult. I'm here to liberate my peoples, and yada, yada, yada. You have to grow up and realize some people were heroes and they were victims. Some people were victims and, they're a bunch of frauds like Serge and Aaron. And some people are going to be in between. They just survived. They had some horrible experiences, but they also had good experiences. Again, the more honest ex-Scientologists tell you this. No, some stuff of it was good. It was positive. It wasn't only this bleak, endless, horrific dictatorship. It was a mixed experience. But again, if you only want to believe a fantasy, you're welcome to do that. So good on Serge for poking that big bubble where people just think, oh my God, how can you attack Aaron? Since a little boy, since a little boy. That is simply not true. Are there some cases? Yes, there are definitely some cases like Jenna, who were definitely in Scientology and definitely traumatized. But even there, they aren't the heroes that they make themselves out to be. So you just got to be careful with their stories. So give Serge one big point for finally revealing what was well known, that no, he was not this child victim that people think he is. He's not. Now, Serge, this big victim, I doubt it either, but at least he has more credibility there.